What if I told you that some of America's top doctors, trained at places like Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and the Mayo Clinic, are quietly sending their kids 8,000 miles away to study medicine? Not to famous cities like London, Tokyo, or Sydney, but to a place many Americans barely think about: the Philippines. Yes, the same country known for its beaches, colorful jeepneys, and love of karaoke, not exactly for its medical schools. At first, this might seem strange. Why would wealthy, well-educated doctors, who could afford any school in the world, choose to send their children to a developing country? Why give up the traditional Ivy League path for a hot, humid school in Manila or Cebu? The answer may surprise you. There's a quiet shift happening, and it starts with a father named Dr. Stephen Miller, a trauma surgeon from Minnesota. He's a serious, no-nonsense man trained in Boston, used to a world where titles and achievements matter most. But when it came time for his son, Noah, to choose a medical school, something changed. Dr. Miller encouraged the usual path: top college, NCAT, internships, interviews. But Noah struggled. Even though he was smart, the pressure was crushing. Dr. Miller realized the system wasn't helping his son, it was breaking him. One cold night, after Noah had another panic attack, Dr. Miller went for a walk alone, thinking deeply. When he got back, he sat down and typed into his laptop: affordable international made schools with good clinical experience. One of the top results was St. Luke's College of Medicine in the Philippines. At first, he laughed, but curiosity got the better of him. He clicked the link. What he saw surprised him. The tuition was lower. The curriculum was US accredited. But more than that, the student stories touched him. American students talked about professors who knew their names. Real clinical experience from the first year. A tough, yet caring environment that taught both medicine and compassion. Still, this was the Philippines. Could it really compare? Then he saw a photo on a blog: a Filipino medical student holding the hand of an old patient in a rural hospital. No gloves, no machines, just eye contact and prayer. The caption read: "He had no family left, so I sat with him until he took his last breath." Noah walked into the room. Dr. Miller shut the laptop, but he couldn't forget that image. 2 weeks later, they were on a plane to Manila. The arrival was chaotic. Heat, traffic, noise. But people smiled at everything: strangers, mistakes, even delays. While visiting the school, a professor asked Noah, "Who do you want to help in the world?" Not "What's your GPA?" Noah was surprised. He looked at his dad. And for the first time in a long time, Dr. Miller felt something unexpected: relief. They hadn't even enrolled yet, but they both sensed something here was different. And they weren't alone. In the months that followed, more students from the US arrived, children of doctors, researchers, air physicians. Many had stories like Noah's: stress, burnout, anxiety. Something new is happening, and it's happening in a place few expected: the Philippines. They were looking for something more real, more human, and despite all its flaws, the Philippines offered an unexpected answer. It wasn't just about running away from the US education system. It was about remembering why they wanted to become doctors in the first place: to help people. One night, at a tiny roadside eatery in Quezon City, Dr. Miller sat and watched his son, Noah, laughing with classmates from 5 different countries. Half were switching between English and Tagalog. It was a far cry from Dr. Miller's own medical school experience: quiet hallways, intense pressure, constant competition. Now, he looked at his son, eating fried chicken with his hands, surrounded by future doctors who were clearly tired but still happy. Dr. Miller didn't say anything, but in that moment he knew. This wasn't a step down. It was a step forward. And Noah's story was just the beginning. What started as one worried father searching for another option has become part of a bigger movement. American doctors who once dismissed the idea are starting to open their eyes. They're realizing that the true heart of medicine might be beating in the Philippines. And soon, the rest of the world may have to take notice. The first few months weren't easy. Noah had grown up in a quiet town where winters dragged on and everyone knew your name by the second cup of coffee. In the Philippines, everything felt new and overwhelming. The heat wasn't just hot, it soaked into his bones. Jeepneys blasted music early in the morning. Street vendors called him Kuya before he even knew what it meant. He missed the food from home, the silence of libraries, the sound of snow crunching under his boots. But strangely, he never felt alone. It started with his classmates, some Filipino, some Nigerian, some Korean, and a few fellow Americans. Inside that small but determined university, titles didn't matter. No one cared if your dad was a top surgeon or a small-town nurse. What mattered was, did you show up? Did you care? And Noah started to care more than he expected. Their first anatomy class wasn't just about memorizing muscles. It was about respect. The cadavers weren't just bodies, they were called silent teachers. Before making any cuts, the entire class bowed their heads in prayer. It caught Noah by surprise. In the US, moments like that might have sparked arguments about religion or policy. But here, silence meant gratitude, a quiet way to thank the person who had given their body to help others learn. Later that week, Noah called his dad. They prayed before we opened the body, he said. Dr. Miller paused. Did that feel strange? No, Noah answered. It felt right. Dr. Miller didn't respond right away. But he gripped the phone a little tighter. Something was shifting in him, too. Back home, his friends had laughed at the idea. One joked, "What's next? Made school in Vietnam." Another warned him about the risks, different standards, fewer resources, language issues. But Dr. Miller had seen something else. He had seen the human side of medicine. And every phone call from Noah made that side clearer. One story stood out. Noah had been sent to a small rural town as part of his training. The hospital had only one ambulance. No CT scanner. The power went out sometimes. On his first day, a pregnant woman came in, bleeding badly. The doctors were overwhelmed. Noah was supposed to just observe. But the lead doctor looked at him and said, "Can you hold pressure here?" Noah's hands shook, but he did it. 2 hours later, after an emergency delivery in a room with no air conditioning, the baby was alive. The mother was safe. The doctor clapped him on the back and said, "You did good, Doc." It was the first time anyone had called him that. That night, Noah wrote in his journal, "I didn't feel like a student today. I felt like a healer." Back in the US, Dr. Miller read that line again and again. And slowly, he started telling other parents. Quietly at first, at church gatherings, hospital lounges, PTA meetings. Not everyone understood. Suggested edits for clarity, flow, and impact. One opening clarity. But some leaned in. One couple from Chicago eventually followed his lead. Consider clarifying who his refers to. Is this no again? Since this is the first mention of Ellie's parents, it might help to be more specific. Revision suggestion. But some leaned in. One couple from Chicago, inspired by No's path, eventually followed his lead. 2-sentence rhythm and flow. Her GPA was a fraction too low. But in Manila, her professors looked at her eyes, not just her scores. This contrast is powerful. For even more rhythm. Revision suggestion. Her GPA was a fraction too low. But in Manila, the professors looked past the numbers. They looked into her eyes. 3. Enhance emotional arc. It was messy, yes, sometimes chaotic, but it was also real. Great contrast. You might push the realness with a more sensory phrase. Suggestion. It was messy, yes, sometimes chaotic, but it pulsed with life. 4. Tighten for elegance. They learned to treat illnesses not just with medicine, but with presence, with patience. Beautiful idea could be more lyrical. Suggestion. They learned to treat illness not just with medicine, but with presence. With patience. With soul. 5. Natural dialogue. Anandalan mo. Should be Anon Pandalan mo. What's your name? And the response. Samuel P.O. Technically it would be Samuel P.O., but this could remain stylized. Also, consider italicizing the Tagalog for flow. He crouched down and asked in slow Tagalog, Anong pangalan mo? 6. Strengthen the close. That moment would never make it onto his transcript. No grade, no evaluation. Perfect sentiment, a quiet, resonant ending. But it might hit even harder with a whisper of legacy. Suggestion. That moment would never make it onto his transcript. No grade. No evaluation. But it stayed with him more than any lecture ever had. Overall notes. Tone, consistent, warm, and humble. Themes, strong emphasis on humanity, cultural learning, humility, and the reframing of what it means to be a good doctor. Pacing, excellent. It weaves narrative and exposition with natural rhythm. Dialogue, sparse but meaningful, well-placed. Strengths. Emotional continuity. The emotional line from the first two scripts remains intact, grounded in humility, compassion, and transformation. Symbolism. The chapel, canteen, and early morning courtyard scenes are symbolic without being heavy-handed. These show No's evolution rather than just telling it. Dr. Miller's moment of realization is beautifully handled, subtle but powerful. Cultural authenticity and respect. The script continues to treat the Philippines not as a plot device but as a living, breathing place with dignity, complexity, and soul. Narrative pacing. The transition from graduation to media recognition to No's U.S. residency and eventual systemic impact feels organic, not rushed. Suggested minor edits, clarity plus polish. 1. Fix minor typos. They toured the campus should be toured. Midship likely meant to be midshift. Wait lists should be wait lists. 2. Sentence flow clarity improvements. He wasn't the trauma surgeon. He wasn't the man who had been skeptical, afraid, even ashamed to admit they'd taken this unconventional path. He was simply a father, a proud father. Suggestion. He wasn't the trauma surgeon. Not the skeptic. Not the man once ashamed to admit they'd chosen an unconventional path. He was just a father. A proud father. Doctors in the making. They toured the campus one last time. father and son. Consider making this moment a bit more poetic. Suggestion: Doctors in the making. Faces from every continent. As the banners swayed, father and son walked the campus one last time. From Midwest to Manila. Why future American doctors are choosing the Philippines. A headline would likely read better as, From the Midwest to Manila, why future American doctors are choosing the Philippines. The story wasn't just about medicine anymore. It was about identity. To add more emotional crescendo to the ending. Suggestion: The story had outgrown medicine. It was about identity. About rethinking where compassion is taught and who gets to teach it. Optional enhancements to elevate impact. 1. Reinforce Dr. Miller's emotional shift. After his whispered line, "We made the right choice," you could add one more beat to deepen his transformation. Optional addition. In that moment, Dr. Miller finally understood. His son hadn't just become a doctor. He had become the kind of man he wished more doctors would be. 2. Call back to No's early days. Bring emotional closure by reflecting on how far No has come. Optional addition toward the end. The boy who once sat cross-legged beside a crying child in Cavite was now the doctor families asked for by name. 3. Finish with a strong line. Your final line is beautiful, just slightly trailing off. Original. And as No's journey spread, so did a quiet, powerful truth. Suggested ending for greater resonance. And as No's journey spread, so did a quiet, powerful truth. The best medicine begins with seeing the person, not just the patient. What's working? 1. Emotional full circle. No's return, not as a student, but a teacher, perfectly mirrors the beginning of the series. It's subtle, not sentimental. And it allows for a powerful evolution of character without saying too much. 2. Introduction of Dr. Chand's daughter. Elegant generational handoff. Her nervousness mirrors No's beginnings, and her lineage, from a skeptic's family, reinforces how far this movement has spread. 3. Kings of humility and legacy. The Philippines as a place that didn't beg to be recognized, it just kept giving, is a beautiful, respectful, and truthful encapsulation of the story's core. 4. Narrative closure without finality. You leave the door open for the reader, for more stories, for the idea that this isn't the end but the continuation of something bigger. Light refinements for polish and impact. 1. Fix minor typos and formatting. In the Philippines, that something was sacred. Capitalize, in the Philippines, that something was sacred. Quezon City. Most likely meant Quezon City. The air thick with monsoon breath. Beautiful image, but the sentence ends abruptly. More on that below. 2. Tighten sentence flow and pacing. Original. He missed the nurses who prayed before shift change and the janitors who remembered every student's name. Suggested. He missed the nurses who prayed before every shift. The janitors who knew every student's name. Small changes like this preserve meaning while improving rhythm. Original. Doctors who had once believed there was only one right way to become a physician now saw the world differently. Suggested. Doctors who once believed there was only one right way now saw the world differently. Cleaner and more direct, without losing power. 3. Strengthen the final paragraph for emotional closure. Your last paragraph builds beautifully, but the final sentence is incomplete. No stood one last time outside the chapel before his flight back to the US. The sky was turning orange, the air thick with monsoon breath. He closed his eyes, listened to the hum of the city. This is such a critical moment, suggest finishing it with poetic clarity. Option A. Gentle closure. He closed his eyes, listened to the hum of the city. The same hum that once overwhelmed him. Now, it felt like home. Option B. Reflective closure. He closed his eyes, listened to the hum of the city. The same city that had once challenged him, and quietly made him whole. Option C. Echo the beginning. He closed his eyes, listened to the hum of the city. And for the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. Optional, if you are expanding this. A title for this entire story series. Example, The Quiet Revolution, How the Philippines Taught Us to Heal. An epilogue or closing note. Maybe a short monologue from Ellie or Dr. Miller, reflecting on what the next generation of physicians could become. A visual adaptation. This would work beautifully as a documentary-style short or a limited series voiceover. Strengths in this closing script. Emotional payoff, no quiet thank you is perfect, simple, humble, true. Core message remains intact, medicine as calling. Healing as human. Love in the room. These are poetic anchors that echo throughout your entire story. Natural, soft CTA, your invitation to like, subscribe, and comment doesn't feel like marketing, it feels like an extension of the conversation. Suggested edits, flow, rhythm, and clarity. Original. Noise that once overwhelmed him now felt like music. He smiled and whispered, not to anyone in particular, maybe just to the land itself, thank you. Refined. The noise that once overwhelmed him now felt like music. He smiled and whispered, not to anyone in particular, maybe just to the land itself, thank you. This enhances pacing and gives the moment a breath of reverence. Original. Because in the end, what American doctors discovered here was not just a place to train their children. Refined. Because in the end, what American doctors discovered here wasn't just a place to train their children. More conversational and emotionally fluid. Original. If this story moved you, if it made you see the Philippines, or even the journey of becoming a doctor in a different light, then don't let it end here. Refined. If this story moved you, if it helped you see the Philippines, or the path to becoming a doctor in a new light, don't let it end here. Small changes make it more rhythmic and cinematic. Original. Or have you already made that choice? Your story might just inspire the next. Refined. Or have you already made that choice? Your story might just inspire the next chapter. Slightly more poetic and complete. Final polished version. The noise that once overwhelmed him now felt like music. He smiled and whispered, not to anyone in particular, maybe just to the land itself, thank you. Because in the end, what American doctors discovered here wasn't just a place to train their children. They found a place that still believes medicine is a calling. That healing is human. That love still belongs in the room. If this story moved you, if it helped you see the Philippines, or the path to becoming a doctor in a new light, don't let it end here. Hit that like button to help more people discover this hidden truth. Subscribe for more powerful stories that honor the heart of the Filipino spirit. And in the comments below, tell us. Would you send your child to study in the Philippines? Or have you already made that choice? Your story might just inspire the next chapter.